My name's Caroline and I work for Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, and this is Stuart Baines, and Stuart has very kindly agreed to give this talk as part of the Wild Eye programme. And Wild Eye is a new project that's based around Scarborough for the next 18 months, that's funded via the town deal, and it's Yorkshire Wildlife Trust working in partnership with several other organisations to try and really promote nature, culture, tourism offer here in Scarborough. So we're really hoping to celebrate the amazing wildlife and nature that you find all along the North Yorkshire coast, try and reconnect people with it locally and give people lots of opportunity to enjoy it, and also hopefully attract new audiences to the town as well, nature tourists that will help with the economic regeneration of the town and provide more year-round sustainable tourism. So, as I said, we're working with different partners. One of the organisations we're working with is called Invisible Dust, and they are an arts and science organisation that work with leading contemporary artists and local artists to create artwork. So, that try and encourage people to think about climate threats and other environmental threats to sort of promote discussion and thinking around that. They're going to be creating 3 new artworks for the town, which you'll see again over the next sort of 12 months being rolled out. There's going to be one artwork here in the harbour. There's also going to be a sea watching station on Marine Drive, and also there's going to be a series of nature sculptures along the cinder track. So there'll be a circular art and nature trail that you can enjoy. The other partner Yorkshire Wildlife Trust are working with is Seagrown here as well, so you're probably aware that they have their seaweed farm just about 4 miles off the coast here and do lots of pioneering development work around sustainable aquaculture. They're going to be hosting lots of events here where you can find out a bit more about that sort of thing and also about the wildlife and nature that we have here in Yorkshire. And then the other partner that we're working with is a professional seafood chef called Rob Green, who's doing lots of work around sustainable seafood. So he's going to be doing lots of pop-up events for us and appearing at festivals and doing cookery schools and cookery demonstrations. So there's lots of different things to get involved with. Stuart's been a fantastic collaborator for the project. He's been really generous with his time. He is going to be doing a sea watching event down the Marine Drive on Saturday. If anyone's interested, you can find out more information about that, and the tickets are available on our website, which is www.wildeye.org.uk. I can give you a leaflet with that address on as well. And we also have a seaweed survey that's happening next Monday too as well. And then, so Stuart's given us 2 fantastic talks already, so this is the 3rd part of the trilogy, and we're hoping to record these, so if you haven't managed to catch the first 2 sessions, we're hoping we'll be able to put those on the website sometime soon. But yes, so Stuart, I'm sure many of you are very familiar with Stuart, citizen scientist and local legend, editor of the very popular and very successful Scarborough Porpoise page, which provides really fantastic information about where you can see and interact with wildlife. So so we're thrilled to have him doing tonight's talk on Minke whales and their annual migration to our Yorkshire coast.
Thanks, Caroline. So as Caroline says, if you catch it, my name is Stuart Baines. I lived in Scarborough all my life, and in the last 15 years or so, become very much involved in the marine mammals that we get off our coast, as well as other wildlife. So what we're going to do tonight is to run through, tell you a little bit about, well, first about the work I've been doing, the projects I'm involved in. Then we're going to talk about the Minke whales as a species, what they are, why they come here, etc. And then we're going to talk about the migration. They travel every year to get to the Yorkshire coast. And I must admit that I've given talks on Minke whales as part of talks before on dolphins and whales and marine mammals. But this was purely on Minke whales, so I've done a little bit more investigation into their travels across the oceans to prepare for this talk. And I've come across quite a surprise myself. But I'll tell you more about that in a moment. So just to start off, tell you a little bit about me. Oh, by the way, as you probably gathered, this is a Minke whale. It's one of 2 that were off the South Bay this summer, about 6 weeks ago. I was looking at a crew on one of the small boats called the Queen's Ferry that went out the harbour doing wildlife cruises, and we were lucky enough to come across 2 Minke whales just off the South Bay. I've got some photographs with Scarborough in the background. It's the first time I've got Scarborough in the background. You see the distinctive, the blend there is coming up. So, there's several hats, apart from being an enthusiastic citizen scientist. I am the coordinator for the Sea-Watch Foundation, which I'll tell you a little about in a little while. That's the area coordinator for Yorkshire for the Sea-Watch. Apart from being a citizen scientist, I also run this page which Caroline mentioned, it's a Facebook page. If you happen to go on Facebook, take a look. It's called Scarborough Porpoise. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment as well. So Sea-Watch, what's Sea-Watch? The organisation for which I'm the Yorkshire representative. Sea-Watch is a national organisation that records sightings of cetaceans, that's whales, dolphins and porpoise, all around the UK. So they have a network of people like me and lots of other enthusiasts who go out and record information. We've been doing it for over 40 years, so we have a huge database of information as to where these animals are, where they're moving with climate change, what species you can see where, and trying to inform people about the fact that we have these cetaceans around the UK. A lot of people don't realise that Britain is exceptionally rich in these sort of animals, and we have over 30 species that you can see around the UK. Some areas have certain types, and other types of the animals that you can see. So we use the information we gather through our network of observers to advise governments and protect these animals, and generally increase knowledge in the public that you don't have to go to Barbados to see dolphins and whales. You go to the right place around Britain, and there's plenty of places you can go. You can see them from the shore off our own coastlines. So this Scarborough Porpoise, this is the Facebook page I run, which I started about 10 years ago, thinking that maybe a few people might be interested in following this. And I thought it might get 400 or 500 followers, but it's grown over the years, and now I have the 78,000 followers to it. I post probably once or twice a day about the Scarborough or the cetaceans we get around here, and people seem to enjoy it, and it seems to have introduced a lot more people to the idea of coming here, particularly to Scarborough, to see what we can see off our coasts. And I've done work in partnership on various things. The North Sea Cetacean Recording Group, very snappy title, but it's very useful. That is set up along with the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust and the Sea-Watch Foundation to encourage again specifically observers to go on the Yorkshire coast. So we have a network now of 40 or 50 observers who observe from the coast all the way from Spurn to Teesside, and we also run boat-based surveys out of Stays and Whitby, looking for and recording the number of cetaceans that we get here, because again we're trying to provide evidence by which we can then get them conserved, or some sort of conservation measures in place to protect them. Because as I say, not many people are aware of these animals that are around here in big numbers. And I'm also involved with Caroline and others in the Wild Eye events, and that's been another great way of promoting the wildlife and art around Scarborough, and from my point of view, letting people know that they can see these fantastic cetaceans, dolphins, whales to get around here. And we've got various things ongoing, haven't we? Including the Sea-Watches on Saturday, so as Caroline said, if you get a chance to come down, I'll be there to tell you about what we can see. And fingers crossed there'll be some fins there as well, but at the end of the day, they're wild animals and they're where they want to be, and they want to be. So, moving on. We're going to just discuss the Minke whale. So, the Minke whale, it rather understates to say it is the smallest of the baleen whales. That's because the other baleen whales are absolutely enormous. Baleen whales are named in that way because it relates to the way they eat. So if you are a baleen whale, you have material like keratins made of the same material as your fingernails. This material hangs down inside your upper jaw of your mouth. So when you're swimming along and you come to a shoal of fish, you open your mouth, swallow hopefully a lot of fish and also water, and then you drain the water out through this material that hangs down inside your mouth, and obviously you then eat that fish. So all the whales that feed in the same way are called baleen whales. So the smallest ones are minke whales, then you go as high as blue whales, fin whales, humpback whales, sperm whales, not sperm whales, but humpback whales all eat in the same way. By not having teeth, but by swallowing large amounts of water, engulfing large amounts of water, and then draining the water out and eating the fish inside. So while they're talking, I'll turn this around, and if you want to have a look, touch that. It is, as I say, very much like fingernail material, and they have many plates of this around their mouth. So they are large animals, 10 metres long, so at least as long as this room, probably longer, a minke whale, and weigh up to 8 tonnes. The females are slightly larger than the males, as with many wildlife species. They're a sleek animal with a sharply pointed head and a prominent dorsal fin. You'll see many examples of that as we're going through the talk. Primarily black or dark steel grey on top and pale underneath. The vast majority of cetaceans, dolphins, porpoise, are all the same colour scheme. They have a dark back and a light belly. That's because they're eating fish, and if you're a fish under the water looking up, the surface of the water looks white or silver. So if you're a predator on fish, you want a white or silver belly as well, so you're camouflaged from the fishes you're swimming around. And they have a prominent feature is a white patch or mitten on their flippers, which again you'll see shortly is very obvious, certainly at close range. So, as I say, 10 metres long, 30 foot long as an adult. This slide I took about 10 years ago now. This is the first time I ever went out with a company called Whitby Whale Watching, who now defunct, but they used to run trips out of Whitby, and they just started when I got involved. And at that point, I'd just become aware of the cetaceans you get around the Yorkshire coast. And I said to a fisherman down the harbour one day, "Have you got any whales around here?" And he said, "I've seen one of my whole career." I thought, well, I'm never going to see one around here then. And then I heard about Whitby Whale Watching. I went up to see them. We went out, we saw 10 whales on the first trip. We were really lucky. The water was like this, it was like a mirror. I didn't realise at the time how unusual it is to find the North Sea in that condition. But it just gives you an idea of the size when you look at this yacht and the size of the minke whale. So how close to shore do the minke whales come? Well, on the whole, I would say they tend to be perhaps a mile or so further out from shore. But we do get examples. Several times this year, they've been by what I call a red buoy. It is a red buoy in the North Bay. If you go by the Oasis Cafe, look out to sea. There's a red buoy, which is in fact the treated sewage discharge buoy. They often seem as close in as that. So we're having several weeks this year when they're seen from land at Scarborough every day. That is Whitby, north end of Whitby in the background there. How many minkes come to the North Atlantic every year? They've written, and I don't know how they've written it, because obviously how do you know how many whales are on the North Atlantic, but they think up to about 180,000. So they are our commonest whale. They weren't particularly hunted when the other whales were. So when they were hunting whales, and some unfortunately still do, they obviously went for the larger whales. They went for the humpback whales, the fin whales, the blue whales. They weren't particularly interested in the minke whales because they were the smallest. If you can hunt a 90-foot blue whale or fin whale, then you would do that rather than go for a 10-metre minke whale. Some countries, Norway unfortunately, still hunt minke whales now, which is very sad. There's a lot of pressure on them to stop, but currently at the moment they are doing that. So, how fast do they swim? They're fast animals, and when you watch them, you suddenly realise how fast they are, because they find a ball of food, and what they do is they'll come in from one direction, sweep through the ball of food, and surface on the left-hand side, disappear, come back, and do the same thing again several times. You watch them, and suddenly you think, "Oh, I've lost that whale. Where's it gone? It's a calm sea." it's because they've just gone off, and then the sun accelerated 35 miles an hour, and gone off one direction, and by the time it surfaces again, it's way over there, and you're looking here. So like all animals, they move at various speeds. When they're hunting, fairly slow, and when they're travelling, they're up to sort of 35 miles an hour. Many times we've been doing surveys off Yorkshire, and you'll see it frequently. You see a minke whale once. So it's a flat, calm sea, comes up, oh, minke whale! And you don't see it again because it's moved away so quickly. But other times, if there's a set ball of fish, they'll just stay there for hours trying to eat the fish. And you get some really good views. Again, that's just south of Staines, that shot there. As I say, they are whale built for speed, as are blue whales and fin whales, which I'll talk a little bit about at the end. They are sleek animals with a pointed head. It's all about speed, so that's the very beak as it comes out of the water. And by the way, the vast majority of the photographs on here are taken by me. There were a few by other people, but most of them are my photographs. So these are which I've fortunately been able to get from boat off Whitby. In this case, you can see the pointed head. You can see the white mittens I'm talking about. So their pectoral fins, their side fins, have a big white band on. But obviously you've got to be fairly close to see that. And if you're looking at one a mile out from the shore here, you'll see the big rolling back with the fin, but you won't see the unusual to see the white banding. But I will show you one example in a little while of where you can see it. It's something that's very unusual that happened this summer. So how long do they live? About 60 years. That's about they reckon the lifespan. A long time. Most marine mammals are long-lived. I mean, bottlenose dolphins, they live 45 to 50 years. These guys live up to 60 years. And obviously they breathe air like we do, so they're a mammal. They breathe air through their nostrils, which through evolution have moved the tip of their nose to the top of their head. And they give birth to live young like we do. They feed their young milk like we do. They release it into the water, and the calf suckles just behind the mother. It's swimming along. If you looked inside the skeleton of a minke whale or any cetacean, you will see that in their pectoral fins at the side, so used to like an airplane's wings, there are actually 5 long finger bones, because they were back in billions of years ago. Cetaceans were land animals, and they spent more and more time in water, so they have an adapted mammalian skeleton. So their fingers are in their fins. They've lost their legs. They still have a pelvis, but other than that, they're very similar to us, except they've lost their legs. They've become more sleek, because obviously if you're in water travelling around, you need to have a little resistance to water so you can travel as quickly as possible. So that's why they don't have legs. There have been some occurrences of dolphins have been born with rear flippers as well as fore flippers. That's a hangover from when they had 4 legs. So how long do they reproduce? It takes about 7 to 8 years to get to breeding age. So although they live 60 years, the first 7 or 8 years they won't breed. So it might seem a long time, 60 years, but they might have a calf every year or two, to a couple of years. So they won't reproduce that many times in 60 years. It's very important that we conserve them. So the gestation period is about 10 months, and the calves, when they're born, are 8 to 9 foot long. We don't see small cows here, for a reason I'll tell you about in a little while. We do get juveniles, so you get the large adults and some that are smaller, slightly smaller, which are juveniles, but we don't get the tiny calves off Britain. So what do minkes eat? Like all large whales, and like all baleen whales, the weird thing is that the largest animals on the planet eat the smallest animals on the planet. So the minke whales that we get here, they come to the Yorkshire coast to eat sand eel and sprat and herring, and in the Arctic waters they'll eat small crab-like items, this sort of thing. But as I say, they don't eat individual fish. they take in as many as they can with water. So say a bottlenose dolphin picks off one fish at a time, whereas these will go and try and gather as much of a shoal as they can at a time and drink and eat the whole amount. So they are shoal fish hunters rather than single fish hunters. So there she goes, and there's a below there, the Minke whale. You don't get as many belows with Minke whales as you do with humpback whales or fin whales, but they have a terrible smell. They smell like boiled cabbage. We've many times been out at sea watching the Minke whales, or looking for Minke whales, and suddenly, you get a face full of the horrible smelling breath. You think there's a Minke whale here somewhere. All we have to do is find it. So on more than one occasion I've been out on a boat and smelt whales and not seen them, but you just know they're there because the smell is overpowering. So that's the old name for them, stinky minkies. It must come obviously from the food that they eat. So looking for the minkies. Is it easy? No, it's not really easy, really. But with a bit of concentration, you can. So what they tend to do is they'll surface 3 to 5 times in a row. They're building up the oxygen in the system, and then they'll dive down for a deep dive, feeding or travelling, and then they'll come to the surface. It's extreme from the underwater for 20 minutes at a time, but quite often they'll be underwater for 5 minutes at a time. So you see them 3 to 5 times surfacing, feeding, and then they dive down. And when we're out doing the surveys with them, we just sit and we wait. We know that probably in 4 to 5 minutes they'll come up and do exactly the same things. If you're on the Ring Drive looking at the porpoise we get here, the hard porpoise, they basically do the same thing. They come up 4 or 5 times in a row, building up the oxygen in the system, then they dive down and spend several minutes underwater using their echolocation to find food. Again, you can see the white mitten here on the Minke whale. It's a very pointed head. Talk in days gone by used to be that Minke whales never fully breach, i.e. they never come out of the water completely. This summer changed that of Scarborough because I don't know you were on the Ring Drive like that, Richard. But I was on my, as I often do, you see me on a push bike, whizzing back and forwards around the Ring Drive, and I was going back to our house in the North Bay. Got a phone call. There was a dolphin jumping out of the water by the harbour. So I thought, I'm right by our house. So I'll come back, cycle a mile and a half back in to get here. And when I got there, it wasn't a dolphin. It was a Minke whale that was jumping out of the water. You can see its white mitten there, and that animal started off in the South Bay. And it continued breaching every few hundred yards, fully jumping out of the water until it got to Burniston. It must have done it 30 or 40 times, once after another. It's a bit of a blurry photograph because it was about 3 miles out at the time when I saw it in the photograph. I've got a little bit of video of it later. But they are known for full breaching, jumping out of the water in other areas of the country, other areas of the world rather. But we haven't had any experience of it here that we knew of. But certainly that one was doing it, and there's been other examples this year of Minke whales doing that. So if you look out for a major splash at sea in the summer, it could well be a Minke whale. Minke whales, by the way, are our summer visitor, so they arrive early June or mid-June through to late October. That's when they're here. That's when their food is here. There's small fish around, sprat, herring, that's in the area. The North Sea herring was drastically overfished back in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. They stopped fishing it and the numbers of herring have come back. And that's why the herring come into our area between Scarborough and Stays, that area every year, looking for that food. Are Minke whales inquisitive about boats? On the whole, they're not. The adults will ignore the boats, continue feeding. Even if you're over a massive bait ball of sprat or herring, the whale will go back and forwards through the shoal or travel on and not pay any attention to the boats. But young ones, Juveniles, they do come up to boats. So this is the boat here, this is the edge of the boat I was in, and the minke whales will come up and they'll turn and we use one eye and look at the boat as they go past and even look at the people on board. And again you can see the white mittens there as it's doing it. So you can just tell it there, white mitten. So that's a fantastic moment when you get to come eye to eye with this 30-foot animal as it slides past the boat. There we are, giving us the eye, that one. That was just a few, probably 15 metres from the side of the boat. When you get these guys coming up to the boat, that's when you get these comments that refer back to Jaws. People say, we need to get a bigger boat and what have you. But I say they're friendly, they are totally harmless human beings. All they're interested in is catching these little fish. They're not bothered about people on boats, they're not going to attack the boat or anything of that order. They might be inquisitive, but they're just travelling, totally harmless, not a great white. And do they work as a team? Again, no, they don't really. They tend to be more single animals. This was an adult and juvenile, so it might have been the calf of the adult. They sometimes will work as a pair, but 90% of the time you'll see minke whales on their own. You might get several minke whales together. So I was at Ravenscar beginning of the week before last, it was the end of the season. There were 4 minke whales I could see from Ravenscar top, feeding in the seas below, but they weren't working together, they were just individually working their patch. It might be feeding on a large shoal of fish, but they don't do it in an organised fashion, so to speak. So that's quite a big difference between these and other forms of cetaceans. So what are the threats to minke hunting? Well, there's only real 2 threats, and the major one for them is what we call bycatch. What I mean by bycatch is if they get caught in super trawler nets, or in this area, if they get caught in, say, lobster pot ropes. That unfortunately is quite frequent in the summer months when we get lots of minkes here. And when I say lots, we do get lots of minke whales here. I'll show you a graph shortly, but we have last year there was at least one count from the States, or a calm sea day, of 70 plus minkes visible at the same time. So lots of minkes out there. And inevitably we get a certain amount that get caught in the lobster pot ropes. It's very difficult because you've got a big 95%, nearly 100% of the fishing out of Scarborough and Bridlington is lobster and crab pots. And you can't turn around to a fisherman and say, don't put any lobster pots in the water for 4 months over the summer because the whales might get entangled in them. So inevitably you do get casualties. We've had, I don't know whether they've all been because of it this year. We've had 3 dead whales washed up this year, 3 dead monkeys. Obviously you get some natural mortality when they just die anyway from old age, same as we would do. And I don't know the findings yet on them as to whether any were or were bycatch or were just natural mortality. But time will tell. Some years we only get 1, 2, 3 years ago we had 7 in the summer, 7 washed up dead. So it does happen, and there was one at Holbeck about 8 years ago, which is actually where the baleen, this comes from one that washed up at Holbeck about 8 years ago. That had rope marks around its tail, so you could tell that it got caught up in lobster pot ropes. And of course the lobster pot ropes, as you know, come down from the surface by the buoy to the seabed, along the seabed with the lobster pots on, and back up. So the whale gets its tail tangled in one line or around a pot. Then it struggles and panics and gets wrapped in more rope, and then it drowns. Because they're not fishes, they're mammals. If they can't get to the surface to breathe, they'll die. Same as we would do. So they can't, I mean, a fish would be okay in that scenario, just wouldn't die necessarily as quickly, but whales do. The other possible source of death, which isn't going to happen in this area because we've only had 1 orca in the last 14 years, but is orca attack. In the polar regions, the orcas will kill them. They're like a pack of wolves. The minke whales are a lot faster than the orcas, but they'll grind it down like wolves would do. There was some scenario on one of those footage of one of those Blue Planet films about that happening. But they now, in our area, it's a tiny chance of that happening, much more likely they're going to die by bycatch, called a super trawler net, or by getting caught in lobster pots. There is some work on trying to put in pingers on lobster pot roads, send out a sonic signal, but I don't think there's been much progress with it yet, and the cost of doing it, who's going to pay for it, who's going to issue it to all the fishermen to put on every crab pot line. Anyway, hopefully something will get worked out so we can reduce the mortality on them. So, as I said, minke whale are not a toothed whale, they are a baleen whale. Toothed whales are sperm whales, not really many. Sperm whales are one of them, well, they actually have teeth, but the majority of the large whales, like humpback whales, fin whales, they have the baleen and don't have teeth as such, but they're classed as a baleen, not a toothed whale. I've just talked about mortality. This is one that was at Reeton Gap this year. You can see the white mitten on its pectoral fin. You can see these marks here. They have folds in their underside. So when they swallow lots of water, it expands like a big balloon. This area here with the ribs on, and then when they force the water out through their jaws, they go back to normal size. So I would recommend it if you do see one of these, and there is a dead one at the moment at Hayden Wyke on the rocks there. One of the 3 we've had this year. Don't go near them. Certainly don't touch them, because they have viruses on them which could damage you. And when it's not a good subject before you have any tea or anything, but when they swell up with the gas inside, eventually they explode. So it's not a pleasant sight. And when the one washed up Holbeck, there was 3 young kids went down to it and they'll jump on top of it and say, don't go that around. You'll be 5 hop high with that thing pops when you're on top of it, you know. Not to mention trying to get the stuff out of your clothes. So yeah, we do get these. We get the whale side, minke whale casualties during the summer when the minke whales are here. We don't get them the rest of the year when they're not here, generally. So now we're going to look at minke whale migration, and as I was telling you at the beginning, doing the research for this talk, to extending the taxonomy of minke whales, I came across information which is particularly interesting, because I thought the talk is of minke whales migrating from the North Atlantic to British waters, but in fact they migrate much further than that. And the reason why I said we don't get any young calves in our area with the adults is because they don't calve here, they calve in the tropics. So minke whales travel from our coasts in the summer back to the tropics in the winter where they have the calves, and then they come back up the North Atlantic. So I was just saying, they come up from this one, what's a picture just off stage, where that stays in the background, by the way. So they come up the North Sea, and I'll show you in a moment a graph of how they travel around the country, around Britain. But originally they spend the winter in the tropics where they calve, and they come here to feed in the cold, rich waters of Britain and the Northern Hemisphere and the North Sea, up as far as the polar regions in the summer, because that's where all the food is. There isn't so much food down in the tropics. So they won't eat much down there. They do all the bulking up and gathering of blubber in the northern parts of the planet in the summer months. So this is Sea-Watch. I was telling you before about Sea-Watch and the fact that we gather information and produce data sets. We're able to produce this graph which shows the movement of the minke whales. So the blue is where they are least at any particular time of year, and the orange is where they are most. This is minke whales. So as you can see, there's a cyclical movement. So January, February, March, April, not much sign of them. There are a few around, but not many. And when you get into June, the numbers start to build. First around northern Scotland and the west coast, and then larger and larger numbers coming down to August to this area here. So this is the height of our minke whale sightings is early August through to late September, early October. These 2 months here. and then the numbers fizzle out again towards the back end of the year, and they're going way back south, down into the tropics to breed. Fascinating animals. But the humpback whales do the same thing. They come to the cold waters to the north to feed, and then go back to the tropics to breed. Why do they come? I think we just explained really. It's all about food. There's nothing else. They don't breed here as far as we know. They don't calve here. They come here to eat and build up fat, build up blubber. And do we record them? Yes, we do record them. As I say, we have land-based surveyors. We have boat-based surveyors. I'm lucky enough to go on quite a few boat-based surveys. We get good numbers here, and we have a dedicated team to go out recording them. This year there's been a fantastic increase, enormous increase in the number of sightings. So as you can see, we normally get mid-teens to early 20s, and this year it's gone off the scale. This year we had 107 sightings of minke whales off Yorkshire. There's been a lot of fish around, so the harbour's been full of sprat all summer, small fish. The sea's been full. If you were around on the Marine Drive at any month through June, July, August, you were seeing large amounts of birds feeding at sea, gannets, other birds. That's because there have been loads and loads of fish around. What we don't really know is, have we got more minke whales than we've had in previous years? Because some years the fish and food is out at sea, 10 miles or plus out to sea. Other years it's inshore. We've had a lot of sightings this year, mainly from the inshore sighting points. So there could be that there are more minke whales around, or it could be that their food has been inshore rather than offshore, or there's been less food offshore than there was inshore. But certainly it's been a joy to watch. And as I say, I was on some occasions seeing minke whales 7 days a week off the Scarborough area. So a massive increase. Time will tell whether that's a pattern or whether it's a one-off. Certainly the pattern has been far less this year, but something happened, something changed. But these things do. In the world of studying cetaceans, things just change, and you think, well, it takes years to work out a pattern or reason out why something's happened. It's like the bottlenose dolphins that we get here. 5 years ago, we used to get 4 or 5 sightings a year of bottlenose dolphins. That's gone from 4 or 5 sightings 5 years ago to over 400 sightings this year. So things change dramatically.
Have you got the same number of observers?
There are more observers because we've been training them. So
Right.
that has had some, obviously some impact on the number of sightings, but on the whole there has been a general huge increase in sightings as well. The number of observers of minke whales has gone up maybe 10 or 20 since last year, but that doesn't account for an increase of 4 times as many, 400 times increase in the number of sightings. So you might be sat on the cliff or on the Marine Drive and thinking, oh, what's that big animal there? Is that a dolphin or is it a minke whale? One way of telling is that minke whales, as I said, tend to be solitary. If it's one on its own, if it's close in and small, it's a porpoise. If it's bigger, it could be a minke whale. But the bottlenose dolphins, which you get commonly here, tend to move around in groups that are usually 4 or 5 plus, up to anything from 4 or 5 up to 40 or 50 together. But unusual, it'd be very unusual and worrying to see a bottlenose dolphin on its own. You normally see them in groups, because bottlenose dolphins move around in family-related groups, whereas minke whales are single animals or a mother and a calf. And can we identify individual minke whales? Yes, some of them we can. Some of them we can. This one was a very obvious one. It's got a big clip missing out of its dorsal fin, and there are perhaps a dozen which have photographed over the years that have marks like that. It's not the same as bottlenose dolphins. Bottlenose dolphins are very boisterous animals and will nibble and wrestle with each other in the water, and a lot of bottlenose dolphins have recognisable fins, whereas minke whales tend to be solitary animals. So unless that might have been damaged by a boat, it might have been clipped by a boat, which has caused that. So very few, probably on average 1 in 50 minke whales you see might have a mark on its fin, otherwise they're indistinguishable one from another. Where's a good place to go and look? Well, I would say on the whole, anywhere that's a headland, anywhere that sticks out to sea as a headland is good, because that's where you tend to get currents crossing and you tend to get a good number of fish there. So Filey Brig, Flamborough Head, Raven Scar. I've often sat at the real whalebones at Whitby by the west bank of the river there, and with a pair of binoculars on a bench having an ice cream and watching whales at the same time. So if you get a nice flat calm day with no breeze in late August or through September, have you got half a day free or an hour free, go to Whitby, sit there with a pair of binoculars, and there's a good chance of seeing minke whales as you sat there. If it's a rough sea day like it was today, you won't see them because they are a low surfacing animal. There's no splash. You often pick up the dolphins because they're splashing and jumping. Minke whales very rarely do that, so you just tend to get a gliding surface. And the marine drive, and just health and safety. If you're going up to a top of Flamborough Head or Raven Scar somewhere, just be careful. I don't want to be blamed for anybody falling off a cliff or getting their hypothermia. So make sure that you have stout shoe wear, as they call it, and are wrapped up tightly if you're going to a headland. But you're probably going to, if you're going for looking for minke whales, you're going to be going in warm weather anyway. But many times this year, or a few times, if you go to where Raven Scar Hotel is, just south of the hotel, if you go on the road runs out to Raven Scar, you go straight onto the hotel. If you go right there, as if you're going to the old Raven Scar Station Square, and then left, the Cleveland Way runs down the side of the hotel grounds. Where the corner is, A, you can look down on the seal colony without disturbing them, but B, you can often see minke whales. So, as I say, a fortnight ago I was there watching 4 minke whales feeding off that area. But I wouldn't do it if there was no onshore breeze or adverse weather conditions. So less common species of whale. So we have to don't just get minke whales. Other species turn up in unpredictable times. A few of them are humpback whale. Now we usually get at least 1 or 2 sightings of humpback whales every year off Yorkshire. I've been lucky enough to see them twice. They are obviously a larger whale, so they're not massive, not a blue whale size, but they're certainly up to 50 foot long. They have a flat top head with tubercles, lumps, which you'll see a picture of in a moment, and very small dorsal fin. Their giveaway signs really are their pectoral fins, their side fins, are a third of the length of the body on a humpback whale. If you've been abroad to Canada or somewhere, we've seen them, they have these massive pectoral fins. They're also white in colour. And they have, with a large whale like a humpback whale or a fin whale, you'll get a definite and large blow going on. We've been lucky enough to go on a cruise across the Bay of Biscay a few years ago, and one evening we sat having a meal and I saw this whale go out the window, didn't I? So I dashed straight out, abandoned on him and dashed out. And then for over 3 or 4 hours we had constantly going through a large group of fin whales. I was counted about 50, but they were all these massive blows going up as far as you could see into the distance. So there was already a large shoal of pilchard or herring or something, and these huge whales were having an absolute feeding frenzy. So the blows came away, they were definitely fin whales. There we are, that's the shot I didn't get. I was on the boat, I was watching it do that, but I didn't have my camera held up at the wrong time. Schoolboy error. But my mate Paul Smith, who was on the boat, he got it. So we were just about 4 miles off Whitby. This minke whale breached out of the water, slammed back in again. Paul was the only one to get a shot. And this whale swam around the boat for about an hour. Did it jump out of the water again? No, it didn't. We were all, come on. And it just sort of gradually swam off. Great. How many times to get a chance to get a shot of a breaching minke whale of Britain or Yorkshire? This is the one I saw as well. Very small dorsal fin. You didn't see much I did see a blow, massive blow as it went out. You can see the white, I was talking about the white pectoral fin, which is the third of the length of the body on a humpback whale. You can see that clearly in the water. That was real right next to the boat. Humpback whale identification is a lot easier than minke whale. This photograph was mine but not taken locally. I took this off Iceland a few years ago. And every humpback whale has a different pattern on the underside of its tail fluke. So they are far more identifiable. So there have been quite a few matches of humpback whales seen off Britain with their breeding grounds in the Caribbean. They've been able to match up the same whale because of the patterning on the underside of the well, a lot of them have dark spots and blotches and what have you. They don't change over the lifetime, and they're all individual. But so they're easier to target identification. One amusing thing was that we went on the whale watching trip. Two amusing things. First of all, we went on this whale watching trip and we saw quite a few humpbacks, didn't we? And went back to port. We were getting off and I said, "Sorry dear, I'm going straight back in the out again, the next one." It was so good to see the humpback whales. The girl on the boat said, "Oh, these humpback whales are so hard to see. Hard to see, there's massive blows going on, tails running around the water here. You ought to try looking for minke whales off Yorkshire." There you can see what's called tubercles and its head lumps there as it surfaces. The other one is a fin whale. Fin whale, we get sightings off Yorkshire. We've had at least two this year off Yorkshire, both off Flamborough Head, I think. One sadly beached and died on Bridlington Beach, but they are massive animals. They very much look like a minke whale, much bigger. So you're talking 72 foot long, they're long for a minke whale, for a fin whale. They're slightly smaller in scale and size than the blue whale, so they're the second largest animal on the planet, but we do get them off Yorkshire. They're eating the same food as the minke whales do, the small fish. Sadly, as I say, one died. It beached on Bridlington Beach. When they do beach, there's not much you can do for a whale that size. You can't pull it back in the water. It's weighing, God knows how many tons? Hell of a lot of weight. You can't pull that back in the water. And as soon as it beaches, it crushes its own internal organs when the tide goes out. It comes in at high tide, tide goes out, whale slumps down, and all you can do is put them to sleep, really. You can't do anything with them. If it's a dolphin or a porpoise, you can manhandle it and get it back in the water. But you can't do that with a 72 foot long fin whale, sadly. So there's always a lot of publicity about them. The reason that whales and dolphins, by the way, do beach is because of the fact that they are a mammal and they need to breathe air through the blowholes. So if they are so sick that they are going to not be able to do that and going to drown, the only alternative left for them is to go run inshore on a beach. But then usually it's the same outcome, unless it's a dolphin or a porpoise. If it's a whale, it's the same outcome as if they drowned at sea. But that's a desperate last straits, is to come inshore on beach if you can't breathe right where's at sea. So fin whale, unless you see them in real life, they don't look too much different from a minke whale. The fin is slightly different, but it's the blow, it's the massive blow. So if I see a massive blow at sea off here, or hear one reported, you think, well, that's a good chance it's either a fin whale or a humpback whale or a sei whale, because they're the ones that blow large amounts into the air. You have to be really close to tell the difference between if it's a small fin whale, because the only difference is that the left-hand side jaw is white rather than grey. So there was one whale watching boat went out 8-9 years ago, and a fin whale came and swam around the boat. The only way they could tell it was a fin whale was it's so close they could see the jaw under the water. So they knew it was a fin whale. Sei whale, they're very similar again. So minke whales, like you've seen the pictures of minke whales, and then you get sei whales, are considerably bigger, up to about 47 foot, and fin whales are bigger again, but they're all very similar looking, but just bigger in scale. So a V-shaped head again, with a central ridge, an erect dorsal fin, tooth-threads, and a vertical bushy blow. It's all about the blow, really. That's a sei whale. So very different, very similar to a minke if it's a long distance off, difficult to tell apart. Sperm whales, we get sperm whales. It's usually a sad outcome for sperm whales because the sperm whales spend their summer around the Azores in that area. It's where they calve. Every autumn, the bachelor male sperm whales come up the west coast of Britain and feed on squid and other sorts of food off the polar waters and around Norway. And then most of them go back down the west coast of Britain, back down to the Azores in the springtime. Some come down the North Sea. And the further down the North Sea they get, there's less squid, the seas are shallower, and they're a deep sea whale. So sadly, most of the sperm whales that passed Scarborough going south die. There were, about 4 years ago, 5 died just north of Sperm Point. They washed up. Again, they got dehydrated because they couldn't feed. Cetaceans get their water from what they eat. They can't go into a river and drink. So if they're not eating, there's no squid, they can't eat it, they dehydrate, the organs fail, etc. So it's always bad news if sperm whales are seen really in this area because usually the outcome is not good. Sometimes they'll try and swim all the way back up the east coast of Britain around at the top, but that's unusual. Usually it's curtains if they come further down. So once you get further down, once you get below the wash towards Essex, the water is extremely shallow and it's no good for sperm whales. It doesn't affect fin whales or humpback whales or minke whales. So they're a different shape. They have a large square head and they're a toothed whale. They have a long underslung lower jaw. They're a totally different different way of life. They're deep sea divers, so they can, if you go to the Azores or areas like that, they will dive down for hours at a time, feeding on squid and come back. They can hold their breath for several hours. But they are deep sea animals, and we don't have deep sea here, so usually it's not good for them. That's sperm whale there. See the wrinkly skin they have, wrinkly skin. Beak whales, this is the last one. The beak whales, these are again a deep water whale, there was one beached near Sperm Point a few years ago. They're weird animals, not particularly big, about the same size as the minke whale. They will eat squid as well. They're deep water whales, so again, this is not a good area for beak whales because of that deep water feeding manner that they have. But it's fantastic for minke whales because they're shallow water feeders. And that's the end of the talk. We'll have a couple of videos. Are there any questions at the same time? So let's close this down.
That's a great photo, Stuart. Where's that one?
That's not near here.
Okay.
That's, if anyone's interested in being really close to bottlenose dolphins, although they come off the pier here, we get close ones here, there's a place called Channery Point on the Moray Firth, far north-east of Scotland, where there's a shingle bank that sticks out into the Moray Firth River, and just at the end there's a deep ravine where the salmon swim up, and you can see bottlenose dolphins there from no further away from the end of the room from here, if you're lucky. I go every year walking with some friends in Scotland, so one year we're going near there, so I said, do you fancy going to look at the dolphins at Channery Point? Oh yes, we'll do that. They didn't realise, of course, that what I knew was that the dolphins are only there up to high tide. So I then told them we'd have to be up at 4:30 in the morning to drive all the way in Inverness to get there at the right time, because on that particular day, high tide was like 5 o'clock, we needed to walk there before 5 o'clock. So just to show you this one, this is an interesting one. This one is the this is the minke that was, again it's fuzzy because it's a long way out, but this is the first time I've ever seen a breaching minke whale. This is one that breached 30 plus times as it went up the coast. And it hit all the national news, hit the international news when this happened.
Why did they do that, Stuart?
I don't really know. I think some chap got some detailed photographs of this, and it might have had parasites on it. So it might have been trying to get rid of the parasites, but they don't know for certain.
Is that the same reason like dolphins are always jump.
Dolphins don't do it for the same reason now. The dolphins are supremely intelligent animals and one of the few animals that actually play all their lives.
Oh, right.
So they're playing, or like communication as well.
It looks so cumbersome when they do that breaching, doesn't it?
What, these?
When they just kind of...
Yeah, yeah.
It must consume a huge amount of energy.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
So it did it for, must have been nearly an hour. One time at a time. It went across the North Bay and all the way to Long Nab. It's doing it all the way. This foot is a bit shaky because I was on a boat. It's always a bit shaky on a boat, of course. This was off. This is Brunswick Bay. So what you see these massive black shapes that come out of the water. As I said, they rarely do what the last one was doing. It's a bit shaky because I was.
Are they constantly moving, Stuart?
Yeah, yeah,
Constant,
yeah, and constantly swimming.
Constantly.
So cetaceans constantly swim. They don't sleep. Not like we do. They can't afford to. They've got to be always awake, partially awake, to come up and breathe at the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Because if they open their blowholes under the water, they just drown like you or I would do. So, whales, porpoise dolphins, they sleep with half the brain at a time. So they switch off the left-hand side of the brain and the right eye shuts, and then they swap over. But they're never unconscious. In their total lifespan, bottlenose dolphins, 45, 50 years, Minke whales, 60 years, they are never unconscious at all. They've got to be aware of what's happening around them, traffic blocks, where are they, and come up to breathe at the appropriate time. So they never get a complete rest like we do. So, and this, I was on a boat again, lucky enough to be on a boat, this one was right by the boat. He was having a good look at us, you can see his pointy head there. Slowly coming up, big blast of horrible air. Stinky Minke then died back in the water and you can see his petrol fins leaking
Do
away.
they all smell the blow, or are Minke's particular?
The ones I've been, well, obviously you don't know, we don't look close to all of them, but this year on the surface they don't, a couple of times we've got a face full of Minke smell.
But I meant, do the other baleen whales, do their blows smell?
Yeah, exactly. The dolphins do as well.
Or
Bottlenose dolphins.
Minke's just...
I've been out in the bay here with the bottlenose dolphins around the boat and you can smell them as well. Yeah, they don't have deodorants and stuff that we have. You know.
They probably say the same thing.
Yeah.
So
it's not good. So they're not just poor Minke's, they're just getting a bad smell.
Yeah. It was thinking diesel.
That smell.
yeah, they have this chevron on the side as well. But yeah, I mean, the videos of Minke whales are very similar because this is what they do. They don't jump out of the water like dolphins, or very rarely. You just get the travelling motions going through. So, as I say, if you fancy going to try and find a Minke, now's not the right time. Now's past the right time. But next summer, beginning of June through to early October, then somewhere on a calm day, somewhere on the cliff top, or on the Marine Drive, then good chance of seeing them with a pair of binoculars. But the other cetaceans you can see from the Marine Drive easily. People who live locally have probably seen porpoise and bottlenose dolphins there regularly, within 300 or 400 metres of the Marine Drive. So they will see. Any more questions?
Where do they Minke come from?
They think it comes from a Norwegian whaler who, this is the folklore tale, that he was stupid enough to call a Minke whale a blue whale or a hump or fin whale. So we'll hunt that fin whale over there. And so that's what the folklore tale is, that he was called Minke. So they call them
Mr.
Minke whales. But it sounds a bit doubtful to me. Needless to say, it often gets misspelled and what have you, because it's not an obvious name like a fin whale, but then they all have fins, yeah.
Stuart,
Yeah.
when it's breeding time, do they partner up or are they just promiscuous with
I think, well, we don't get breeding here, but as far as I know, they don't have a partner for life, they're promiscuous, I think, like most cetaceans are.
Yeah.
Porpoise porpoise breed here. It's, the difference between what those dolphins and the porpoise we get here is it's a destination for the porpoise. They breed off the marine drive. And
So will there be
they're very promiscuous.
proportionally, will there be a male for a female or one
No,
male
I
for
think
a
there's more females than males.
Yeah.
And certainly, when you see the porpoise off the marine drive, the porpoise always have a calf females have a calf about July time, which spends a year with a mother. So the vast majority of sightings of porpoise off the marine drive are a mother and a calf. You see two together. Occasionally you see one. When you see one, I think that's a male one, but there are far more females than there are males.
Yeah.
But they are very promiscuous as well, so they don't mate for life. And you might sometimes the only time you see animated behaviour from porpoise usually is in late October and November. That's when they mate, the porpoise, and they have the babies in July the following year. And they sometimes they'll jump out of the water and what have you that time of year, but the rest of the time, porpoise swim like minke whales, just gradually see their back as they come up. Any more questions, John?
Do they inhale through the mouths or just through the blowhole?
Just through the blowhole. Yeah. Right, well, I hope you've enjoyed that talk.
When you say eat, I understood that bit because they just sort of drain the food through the baleen. But they've got no teeth, how do they?
No,
you just go
they've
straight
got
and they
tongue.
digest it? Or
Yeah. So, one issue for baleen whales, which doesn't face dolphins as much, is plastics.
Right.
Because they will
I wondered about
swallow a lot of water, they'll no doubt swallow balloons and all sorts of rubbish in the sea, and they'll probably swallow it. So, it's not good for them.
that. No.
One
What
reason
happens
why-
inside? What do they do with it? Just digest it?
Probably a lot of it will just pass through them, but some won't. Some might cause a problem, might die from it. So if it's just a plastic bag, it probably pass through it, but it might not. It might cause a blockage. So whales like that are they vulnerable to plastics in the sea?
Yeah.
That's another topic. But whereas often those dolphins which pick up one fish at a time, they're not nearly as.
That's what I thought. If they're just taking in everything that
Just a whole lot. So
there's a lot of rubbish.
I mean, before plastics were involved back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, it wasn't a problem for them. But now the sea full of plastics, full of nylon fishing gear, all this stuff, which are they're swallowing. Yeah.
So Stuart, they've got a full digestive system, the stem, so it goes straight through out the other end.
Yeah. Exactly the same as us.
Say again.
They're classed as ungulates.
It's what?
Ungulates.
It's quite like pronunciation, but yeah, it's certain types of
Historically, come back to using it.
Yeah. As I say, originally they were all land mammals, billions of years ago. Right. So if there's no more messages, if you want to go and see a real one, well, not minke whale, but often the dolphin, there is a chance on Saturday morning if they're around, we're around. But if you live in Scarborough, keep your eyes peeled as you walk around the Marine Drive. Usually most days there's either porpoise or dolphins off the Marine Drive.